Did you ever once think what it's like to watch your own son call you a traitor, just because you dared to protect him from you? Elena Whitmore's voice didn't tremble with tears, but with ice, the kind of quiet, seething fury that had simmered beneath polite smiles and Sunday potlucks for years. She stood on the porch of her Ohio suburb home, gripping an envelope that had arrived the day before. Inside, a bank statement. And on it, the signature of her brother, Randy. The same signature that had appeared on the power of attorney for their mother's house. The very document he'd obtained while Elena lay in the hospital recovering from heart surgery. Randy Whitmore stood across from her, jeans creased just right, Brooks Brothers sweater pristine, looking like he'd stepped straight out of a catalog titled The Perfect American Uncle. He didn't even try to hide his smirk. "You signed everything yourself, Elena. I had no choice. You were incapacitated. Mom wanted things fair. But you ruined it." "Fair?" Elena stepped forward, wind snatching her hat away, leaving her hair and her soul wild and exposed. "You sold the house. Sold it for a third of its value and deposited the money into your own account. You told my nephew I betrayed you, that I wanted everything for myself. You made him believe I was a monster. And you? You smiled at Mom's funeral like you'd just won." He shrugged. "Life isn't a fairy tale, sis. Whoever moves fastest gets to write the truth." Elena nodded slowly. There were no tears in her eyes, only resolve. "You're right, Randy. Life isn't a fairy tale. But revenge? Revenge is an art. And I've just begun writing my chapter." Elena Whitmore had always been the one who held the family together. After their parents passed, she organized reunions, remembered birthdays, knitted sweaters for the grandkids, and brought soup to the neighbor with cancer. She was that aunt, kind, unassuming, always there. But beneath that gentle exterior, resentment had been building for years. Especially toward Randy. Randy was 2 years younger, yet always acted older. He earned the better degree, married the right woman, bought a house in the most prestigious neighborhood. He knew how to manipulate their parents, how to make them believe he was the family's backbone, while Elena was just the nice girl who never married, never had kids, never did anything meaningful. When their mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, Randy proposed a power of attorney. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Elena agreed. A month later, she was hospitalized with a cardiac emergency. By the time she recovered, the house she'd grown up in was gone, sold for $185,000 in a market where it was worth $520,000. Elena tried to talk to Lucas, her nephew, the boy she'd raised like a son. But Randy had already spun his web. "Your Aunt Elena decided the house should be hers alone. She didn't want to share, not even with me. Not even with you." 18-year-old Lucas, confused and hurt, believed him. He stopped answering her calls. Blocked her on social media. On Thanksgiving, he texted, "Don't come. You're not family." Elena tried to prove the truth. But she had no documents. Randy had destroyed them all. And courts believe paperwork, not pain. Alone in her small apartment, staring at the last photo with her mother, Elena realized she would no longer be the good aunt. Good people lose. And she refused to lose again. Her first move was silence. She stopped complaining. She smiled at neighbors, joined yoga classes, signed up for a book club. But inside, she was building a plan. She knew Randy was a perfectionist. He couldn't tolerate chaos. His life was a chessboard, lawyer wife, 2 kids in private school, a manicured lawn, a country club membership. His weakness? Fear of public shame. Elena started with his business. Randy ran a small landscaping firm serving wealthy clients. She hired a private investigator, not the kind who tails cheating spouses, but the kind who digs deep. For $3,000, she received files, forged invoices, off-the-books payments, contracts with unlicensed subcontractors. But it wasn't enough. She needed a blow he couldn't recover from. Then she remembered his wife, Kristen. Cold but ambitious, Kristen dreamed of becoming a judge. And for that, she needed a spotless record, no scandals, no debts, no shadow of doubt. Elena found her weakness, the mortgage. The house they'd bought cost triple their actual income. Randy had lied to the bank about his earnings. And Kristen. Kristen knew. And stayed silent. Elena sent an anonymous letter to the bank. Within a week, Randy received a notice of audit. Within 2, the bank froze all his accounts. But he held on. He smiled at his son's school concert. He drank whiskey with neighbors. He even called Elena to talk like family. "You can still fix this," he said, as if he were the victim. Elena just smiled into the phone. "I haven't even started, Randy." The next move cut deeper. Elena reached out to Lucas, not directly. He wouldn't answer. Instead, she found his girlfriend on Instagram. Her name was Mia. She studied design, loved old movies, and posted photos of coffee in handmade ceramic mugs. Elena messaged her as an old friend of Grandma's, claiming she had letters written by Lucas's mother before she died, letters revealing the truth about Randy. Mia didn't believe her at first. But Elena sent a scan of one genuine letter. Their mother had indeed written, "If anything happens to Elena, know this, she always loved you like a son. Don't believe anyone who says otherwise." Mia showed it to Lucas. He dismissed it at first. But then, he dug. He found old texts between Randy and the realtor. He uncovered bank statements. He saw how his uncle had wired money to an offshore account while his aunt lay in a hospital bed. And then Lucas came to Elena. He stood at her door like a lost boy, confused, ashamed, eyes red-rimmed. "I'm so sorry, Aunt Elena. I was such a fool." She hugged him. She didn't say, "It's okay." She didn't say, "I forgive you." She simply said, "Now you know the truth. And now you get to choose who you stand with." That Christmas became the turning point. Randy hosted his usual dinner. Invited everyone. Relatives, neighbors, his wife's colleagues. He wanted to prove everything was under control. That the family was united. But an hour before dinner, no one came. First, Kristen refused. She filed for divorce. Said she couldn't be part of the lies anymore. Then Lucas called and said he'd spend the holiday with Aunt Elena. Then the neighbors stopped answering. Then the bank seized his accounts. Randy stood at the window, staring at the empty street strung with holiday lights. His children sat by the tree, wondering why no one showed up. Meanwhile, Elena served Lucas and Mia homemade apple pie, her mother's recipe. 3 plates on the table. A silver-framed photo of Mom in the center. "She'd be proud of you," Lucas said. "No," Elena replied. "She'd say, stop seeking revenge. Start living." And for the first time in years, Elena felt peace. A year passed. Randy lost his business. His house was auctioned off. He moved into a rented apartment in another state. His son stopped speaking to him. Elena opened a small handmade jewelry shop. She smiled more. Sometimes, she even laughed. Lucas started college. He called her every Sunday. Sometimes Elena wondered, was it worth it? But then she'd remember her mother's house, the scent of lavender, the creak of the porch swing where she and Lucas read books together, and she'd understand. Revenge isn't about pain. It's about restoring justice. And sometimes, justice means the liar is left alone, while the truth finally comes home.